I have the pleasure of announcing and introducing our next speaker, Thomas Tileston. He's the Vice President of Business Decision Support Systems at Warner Brothers. I've heard him talk before. He is an excellent talker, and he's going to be talking today about how to collect data in the organization and how to create new value given that data that you've collected and how to use it up and downstream with your customers and with your suppliers. He's going to be presenting, using his presentation with a lot of fun pictures and examples, and I'm sure you'll be impressed. Thomas?
Well, good morning. So I'm at Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. What we do is we manufacture and sell DVDs primarily. So today I'm going to talk to you about a sort of our response to this tough economy. And what we've decided to do is, as an organization, we created a number of groups, and we've called these groups Commercial Benefits Realizations, or CBRs. I want to talk about two of these CBRs, Commercial Benefits Realization Groups. One CBR is focused on SKU optimization. And again, as a result of this tough economy, their focus on SKU optimization was to reduce costs and look at specifically our inventories and say, okay, how can we reduce costs? The second CBR was focused on improving the forecast process. In other words, what they were really focused on was increasing revenues. So I'm going to look at two of the CBRs, SKU optimization and improving the forecast, and some of the challenges we had around these particular CBRs, and in essence, how data came in to save the day, so to speak. So the first one, in terms of SKU optimization, I'm going to look at two things particularly. One is called case types. And we're going to look at the inventory of case types, and that's the snapper case versus the amaret, which I'll demonstrate in a second. The second inventory piece we're going to look at is format types. Probably most of you are familiar with this. This is the full screen versus the wide screen. And then the third one, slow-moving inventory, I'll just touch on. So let's look at this, the snapper versus the amaret. On the left is a snapper case, and on the right is the amaret case. Now, if you have a DVD collection, most of you have a lot of the amaret cases. A few of you might have the snapper cases. This is a snapper case. It opens like this and slides open, right? Folds open, and then it shuts with a little snap, right? You probably have some of these in your DVD collection. If you have a DVD collection, unfortunately, consumers and retailers alike are not too fond of this. And the reason being is if you have a shelf and you slide it into the shelf, and then you reach your shelf and you pull it out, this little tab right here will connect and hook onto the DVD next to it, and you'll pull out this DVD and maybe 2 or 3 more will fall on the floor. So consumers, I don't know if you've had that. I know I've had this. Now, consumers really don't like this. However, Warner Brothers actually has a patent on this. So for every one of these we sell, we get royalties. So we've sort of said, well, yeah, consumers don't really like it, but we get 3 or 4 cents for each one of these, so they'll be all right with that. No, they weren't all right with that, so eventually we had to stop producing these. So then the CBR actually their initiative was to say, well, let's go into the inventory, because we have warehouses full of DVDs. Let's look at this inventory of snapper cases, and let's see what we can find. All right, so we looked at the snapper inventory, and we realized, well, number one, to produce a snapper case like this one is more expensive than to produce an amaret case. The amaret case, again, this is the one that most of your DVDs come in the amaret case. Okay, so that's one thing. Two, it's really not efficient. I didn't even know that we had this, but it's not efficient to have the same title in both the snapper case and the amaret case. I had no idea that we actually manufactured both in the same cases, but it's not a good idea, and for one reason, it really confuses the retailer, and it also confuses the salesperson, because the salesperson goes to Walmart or Best Buy and says, we want you to buy 1 million copies of these DVDs. Oh, and by the way, you have your choice of snapper or amaret case, and it's confusing. So it's just not, it doesn't make sense. Okay. The other thing that they discovered is that in 2009, Warner Brothers produced 15 million of these snapper units for various titles. I had no idea. I thought we had actually stopped producing them, but we continue to produce them. We have 1,700 snapper titles in inventory, so that's 8.8 million units of these things in the inventory. And the storage cost just for the snapper case alone, we estimated was about $400,000 a year. Okay, so we know one thing, we don't really sell the snapper case that well, consumers don't like it, and it doesn't make sense to have both snapper and amaray. All right, so we came out with a proposed solution. Three ideas came out from this CBR. One is we can liquidate the snapper inventory. In other words, what we'll do is we'll take all of our snapper products, or a certain percentage of the snapper products, and we'll offer them at a liquidation sale to our retailers, wholesalers, and to the liquidators. The other thing we can do is we can destroy. So let's say that we have a title in inventory in the amaray case, and we have an excess of 1 year's worth of inventory. Well, in that case, whatever snapper cases we have in inventory, we should just destroy it. And the third alternative is we can take our existing snapper inventory and we can convert it to an amaray inventory if we find that the demand forecast, the demand for this particular title exceeds the inventory. Now we have to keep in mind the cost. It costs about 40 cents to take a snapper case, pull out the DVD, put it into an amaray case, shrink wrap it, tag it, and all that. About 40 cents per copy. The other thing they wanted to do, this CBR decided, well, what we need to do is we need to create an executive dashboard to show the progress while we're doing typical monthly performance tracking. All right. They came up with the benefits. Well, obviously, we're going to drive our inventory costs down. If we can get rid of these 8.8 million units in inventory, we can drive inventory costs down. We're going to reduce the confusion among retailers and among consumers. The actual dollar benefits that they estimated was around $6 million in benefits, and this took into consideration the cost of destroying existing inventory, the cost of swapping out from snapper case to amaray case, and also the revenues that we would receive from liquidation. So we're looking at about $6 million worth of benefits there. Now the CBR team, these are really good teams. We have a bunch of people from sales and marketing and operations, and they even put together a nice process for this. And they created a process map, and it decides, well, under what conditions are we going to destroy, under what conditions are we going to liquidate, and in what conditions are we going to swap out from snapper to amaray. I'm not going to go through this process, but it shows that some thought was put into it. And in fact, there was quite a lot of thought put into this process. And after everything was said and done, they took the costs, they took the benefits, the process, the human resources that would be involved. They presented it to the executive management team. The executive management team said, you know what, that's a good idea. Let's move forward for it. If we can reduce, or we can see benefits of $6 million, let's go ahead and do it. We had one small problem. There was nowhere in our business intelligence environment that we could identify exactly which titles in inventory were snapper and which titles in inventory were amaray. We knew we had 8.8 million titles, or not titles, 8.8 million SKUs in inventory that were snapper. We could tell when a snapper case went out to the retailers. We could tell when a retailer sold a snapper case. We could tell when a snapper case came back to us in returns. But when it actually went into inventory, there was nowhere in our BI system that allowed us to identify which of those in inventory were snapper and which of those were amaray. Okay. Now, the data exists. It's there in the systems. It's just so buried in the operational systems that our typical BI tools can't get to it. We traditionally don't report on case types. Management wants to know, well, how many DVDs did we sell on a particular genre? How many DVDs did we sell on a particular title? How many DVDs did we sell for a particular talent, for a particular actor or a director? But no one in the history of Warner Brothers Home Entertainment has ever asked the question, how much money do we make or not make on Snapper or Amaray cases? It was just never asked. So that's a minor problem. Which have the same idea with full screen and widescreen. You know the difference between full screen and widescreen. Full screen came out because it fills the entire TV picture. Widescreen is the same aspect ratio as what you see in the motion picture, but you get this black box at the top and the black box at the bottom of your TV. So we had a number of shoppers, Walmart shoppers, we had a number of shoppers who said, wait a minute, this black box at the top and the black box at the bottom of my TV, I'm getting ripped off. I'm not getting the full benefit of my TV picture. So I want to see everything. I want to see my TV picture full of, That's why I bought the TV. Well, what they didn't realize is that, we're showing you the whole picture in the TV, but we're cutting off the edges from what you saw in the motion picture. So it's called pan and scan. So full screen, pan and scan. So what happens when they edit it for the full screen, there's actually panning going back and forth. So you're actually cutting off, I think it's between 20-25% of the actual image. Nowadays, most people want the wide screen, they don't want the full screen. So again, we decided that let's take a look at our widescreen, full screen. Let's go through the same process. In this case, we're either going to destroy or liquidate. We're not going to go through the expense of changing a full screen to a widescreen. That would just be cost prohibitive. But let's go through the entire inventory of full screen, what's in inventory. Let's decide whether or not we're going to liquidate it, sell it to retailers, wholesalers, or we're going to destroy it. And we knew we had 461 titles in there. Again, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of SKUs. And we went through the same benefits package. We looked at the cost of destroying. We looked at the revenues we could get from liquidating. And we came up with another process map. Same thing we did with the Amaray and Snapper cases. Presented to executive management. Unfortunately, the same thing. Within the BI environment, in inventory, we cannot identify our full screen and widescreen. We can identify what was sold by full screen, widescreen, but not what is in inventory by SKUs. So that's a pretty big dilemma because now we're looking at quite a few millions of dollars that they're just sitting there on the table. Okay, so separately, we have this completely different initiative called data quality management. Now, the role of data quality management is to look at the data on a day-to-day basis, or operational data, on a day-to-day basis, and look for errors in the data, and then either automatically fix the errors or manually fix the errors. This is completely aside from any of the commercial benefits realization programs we have. It's a completely separate program. And the way data quality management works is we start out on the far right there, SAP. That's our operational data store. That's where we store all of the data for our manufacturing and sales. It's our operational systems. So everything about the DVDs for operational systems is stored in SAP. Whenever we create a new DVD, it's created within SAP. When we manufacture it, it comes from SAP. When we sell it, it comes from SAP. Then once a day, we take all of the data in SAP and we move it into our data warehouse called Teradata. This is our enterprise data warehouse. This is where we do all of our analytical business intelligence. Now, the problem that we have with both the Snapper and Amaray and the full screen and widescreen is that all of our business intelligence occurs within the Teradata environment, our enterprise data warehouse. None of our business intelligence reporting comes out of SAP. All of our inventory information at the very granular level is in SAP. It's in our operational stores. The operational data moves over to Teradata on a daily basis. However, it's aggregated up into our enterprise data warehouse to a level where you can't get, in the inventory data, you can't get to the very granular data. But it does exist in SAP, but there's no BI interface between our operational system, SAP, and the business user. The BI interface exists between Teradata. So, getting back to this data quality management, we do have a guy, his name is David, and every day they take data from SAP, put it in Teradata. David uses these SAS scripts. SAS is a data mining tool. David uses the SAS scripts, and he goes through all of the data that came out of SAP and put into Teradata, and he checks it for errors based on business rules that are provided to him from either the sales team or the marketing team or whomever. And then David with his SAS scripts, if he finds errors in the SAP data, now obviously he's doing this in Teradata because the data's been moved over, and he can fix the data using scripts and automated rules, he just sends it back to SAP in that inner loop where it says automated correction upload file. He'll automatically fix the data and send it back to SAP. If for some reason there's data there that's obviously wrong but can't be fixed by automated scripts, then David will take this manual, he'll create an Excel spreadsheet, and he'll send the bad data to someone in marketing or operations, whoever is the data owner. They will manually fix it, and then they'll run it by this DQM task force, which is simply, it's a task force to make sure that the fix is in fact, it's an audit mechanism to make sure that whatever the fix is in fact correct. It's vetted, then it goes into a correction upload file in the back end SAP. So it's a completely separate process from any of the commercial benefits realizations processes. It just so happened we had one person on one of the CBRs. She was on the Snapper exit strategy CBR. And when they came to this dilemma, they said, well, we've got this great program. We're going to save $6 million. We just can't execute because we can't get to the data. In her mind, she says, wait a minute. There's this guy, his name is David, and he does this thing on a regular basis. Maybe he can identify who, the snapper and the full screen inventory and fix the problem for us. So she went to David and said, David, can you do this? And David said, yeah, a piece of cake. Are you kidding me? It's easy. But he's the only one in the company that can do it. So they invited him to join the CBR. Now David is very popular. He joined a bunch of CBRs, and they asked him, David, can you identify in our inventory snapper cases for deletion, for destruction, for liquidation? Yeah, no problem. Can you identify all of our full screen inventory? Yeah, no problem. I can do that. I can have let me run it tonight, and you'll have it tomorrow morning. Okay, very easy. So in the end, we did get our Snapper Amaray team, this CBR that's focused on Snapper Amaray. They did transition. They successfully completed the Snapper Amaray transition. They moved on to full screen, widescreen. They completed that. Now what they're doing is slow moving inventory. So again, they're looking within our inventory. They're looking at the titles that are on retailer shelves, currently on retailer shelves today, but they're just not selling. And they're going to stay on retailer shelves forever. So now they're focused on, well, can we liquidate these or can we destroy these titles? Okay. The net benefits to date, this was as of May of 2010, we have realized $4 million in savings. And this is through sales of both the Snapper and the full screen to liquidation, the destruction of excess inventory, and we did actually replace some Snapper with Amaray. We have brought our excess inventory charges down to 0 for the first time in the company history. And we have our year-to-date excess inventory costs are now $100,000 below our estimates. So the focus next is on underperforming SKUs, as I've said, those titles that sit on retailer shelves but aren't selling, slow-moving inventory, obsolete titles that, again, I mean, they're just not selling, and they never will, and we'll just get rid of them. Okay, so that was the first CBR. The second CBR is focused on increasing revenues. Now, this CBR is focused on demand planning and forecast accuracy. As a company, we've spent many years working on our forecast accuracy. Before, I'm currently the VP of Business Decision Support. Previously, I was the VP of Global Forecasting. And it was my role then to globally make sure that our forecasts were absolutely the best they could be. And I think right now, our forecasts are pretty good. Our statistical forecasts, they're pretty good. No forecast is right. But we've been able to improve our forecast from a 40% accuracy, which is like throwing a dart at a bullseye, down to 10%. So we have now a 10% forecast accuracy. But there was one idea from this one CBR which turned out to be a really good idea. And the idea is this. You know, we have this field sales, the sales team that work with the retailers. Now, the sales teams, they are required on a monthly basis to enter into our computer systems what they estimate the retailers will buy in each of the titles, for any title. Now, this information is not captured anywhere in any of the forecasts, but this is actually really valid forecast information. They're required to do this starting 18 months before a title is streeted or before a title is released to the public. They go in once a month, they go into the system, and all the titles they're responsible for and all of their retailers, they go into the system and they enter how many they believe the retailer will purchase from us. So what we want to do then, this CBR, this commercial benefits realization team, said, let's integrate the field sales demand process into our forecast. Great idea. And this is the way it works. We don't really know, but we thought would be true is that, let's say we have here 9 months before a DVD releases. On the far right is the actual release date, and that blue dot represents the actual number of units sold on street date when the title releases. Well, 9 months before then, the field sales team has to enter an idea. This is what we think a particular retailer will purchase from us. So what we're assuming, and it's a good assumption, what we're assuming is that as we get closer and closer to release date, the field sales estimates are going to be truer and truer to what the retailer actually purchases. Now, it might not be truer and truer to what the consumers buy, but it should be truer and truer to what the retailers purchase. So we thought, well, maybe 9 months before a particular street date for a particular title, for a particular retailer, the sales team would enter some number. Then 6 months before, it would be a different number, maybe it'd be a much lower number, but it would be, or it should be, closer to what the retailer really will purchase from us. And obviously the retailer is going to purchase what they think they're going to sell. They don't want to purchase too much or too little. And then 3 months before will be a different number, but again, it should be closer and closer to reality. And then 1 month before, again, a different number, but closer and closer to reality. So the idea then is what we're going to do is we're going to capture these estimates starting actually 18 months before, but here's 9, capture the estimates from the retailers, and then over time we're going to measure them against that blue dot on the far right and see, do these estimates really become more accurate over time? And if so, can we measure how more accurate they are over time? And can we then implement this measurement into our forecast and use it into our forecast? So we're going to take what the sales force believes we're going to sell to the retailers, and the retailers are buying based on what they feel they're going to sell to the consumers. Can we take those numbers, capture them over time, measure to see if they become more accurate, and then integrate them into the actual sales forecasting mechanism? Well, Small problem. Every time a Salesforce team member enters a forecast, it overwrites the previous one they entered. So in the system, we only capture one number, the most recent number they've entered. So we have no mechanism of being able to version or to take one estimate and then the next estimate a month later and the next estimate and measure, well, how accurate or inaccurate is that? It's not built into the system. So here's another example where we got a team of really bright people together. They came up with a great idea. They actually came up with numbers for this in terms of benefits, benefit realizations, costs. They presented it to the executive management team. The executive management team said, yeah, this is a great idea, do it. They said, okay, let's implement. They went to IS and said, well, IS went, no. You guys overwrite. Every time you enter a new forecast from the field sales, you overwrite the previous one. That's what you told us to do 3 years ago. So now what we have to do is try to figure out, how can we change that? Okay, to bring it, have we learned anything from this? We come up with great ideas, but somehow or another, we just stifle ourselves. In essence, we make money in spite of ourselves. We're able to sell DVDs regardless. But we've just gone through a really bad period, and we're going through a fairly bad period now with this recession where people are not buying DVDs like they used to. We've got to be able to implement these new ideas. These are three really good ideas that were brought up, and three really good ideas that were stymied because there was something wrong with the BI infrastructure. We just started last week. We've hired an outside consultant to work with us and to completely reevaluate our global business intelligence strategy for the entire world. To start from scratch, we don't think we're going to redesign the whole thing. But what we need to do is we need to really look at the BI strategy that we have for the world. This week, we're actually starting with interviews, and we're starting at the executive vice president level, and we're interviewing the executive vice presidents, and then the senior vice presidents, then the vice presidents, who are all involved in these CBRs, who are all involved in business intelligence in one way or another, who have business questions, whether they be on the IT side or it doesn't, whatever side they're on. And let's just reevaluate the entire BI strategy. That's probably the one lesson we learned. I hope we come up with more, but for the time being, that's enough. So that's pretty much it. Any questions?
Yes, how long after the movie is released to the theater does the DVD come out?
Okay, that is a strategic question. Do we have anyone from any of the studios here? Okay.
Studios?
From
I used to be with Warner Brothers.
Oh, you left. Okay. Good. Congratulations. No. No. I take that back. No. Actually, so that is a very tight. I would say roughly it's between 3 and 4 months. I think now it's around 90 days. But that's something that I get asked a lot, and I tell the people, whoever I get asked a lot from the media, from the news, and I tell them to go to other news. I generally don't answer that, but it's about 3 or 4 months.
The reason I'm asking is because you're starting 9 months before the DVD is released.
Oh, we look at the release of a DVD long before it's ever been released as a motion picture. So 18 months before street date, which is maybe 12 to 16 months before the motion picture is released, we're actually starting the marketing. We're starting to create, the DVD itself. Yeah. Yes.
How are you going to ensure that your new evaluation of your business intelligence system is going to be better than your last evaluation?
There's one in every crowd. No, that's actually a very, very good question. Yeah, how are we going to ensure that? The problem that we have is that our business changes so dramatically, so quickly. When I first started, we were selling VHS and only VHS. We've gone from VHS to DVD, then DVD to HD and Blu-ray. Remember that war? Well, no one won that war because Blu-ray is not selling the way we had expected it to. Now we're going from Blu-ray to electronic sell-through. And the decline, I mean, forget the snapper case, the decline of the standard definition DVD is going down. People aren't buying, you guys aren't buying this. You know, so the challenge that we have is, excellent question, but the challenge we have is our business changes so dramatically that we're having a really hard time just keeping up with that. So how do we, you know, I think what it will take is that the next time, after we've implemented this, we made all our changes, suddenly somewhere in the digital download era, the electronic sell-through, somebody's going to ask a business question and we're going to go, oops. And then we're going to have to reevaluate the whole thing. But that's a great question. I don't know the answer. Yes, sir.
Yes, so a follow-up question. In terms of talent management, you mentioned David, and you mentioned that in your SAP you have almost all the answers already.
Correct.
But you have a challenge that not everybody can go into the SAP.
Yes.
Is that part of your reevaluation strategy?
Well, yeah, good question. Actually, it is, but one of the things, we do not want people going to SAP to answer business questions because SAP is an operational system. It's not a business intelligence system. So if there's a particular question and the data resides in SAP, we want to move that data from SAP, we want to move it from SAP into Teradata in the level of granularity required. So in this case, let's say it's the Snapper Emery problem. We don't want people going to SAP to answer business questions because that's not the role of SAP. SAP is an operational system. We want to move that data into Teradata and then use our business intelligence infrastructure, which right now is business objects, and use that to answer the question.
I ask because I work for Herbalife and I'm in your role.
Okay.
And you're absolutely right. The business is always changing, and the more we teach people how to use business intelligence, the more complicated their requests become.
Absolutely, no.
My David is named Richie.
Richie, okay.
So Richie is one of the people that we've identified that when this comes up, he's the one person or one of the few people that goes into SAP and
Yes.
extracts it. Now, in our circumstance, it didn't make sense to change our Teradata
Right.
because those kind of questions only happen every 2 months. So Richie was that kind of a person
Right.
at that point.
Let me give you my card. If Richie wants a job, tell him to call me. Okay, yeah. No, we need more people like David and Richie. Absolutely, yes. Yes, sir. And then,
Have you found that the makeup of these groups who are evaluating business processes and exploring that has changed because you need more people like David in the room to help facilitate?
yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, we started the CBR initiative with, in mind, we knew we had people from sales, people from marketing, people from operations, and people from finance. Okay. We did not include people from IT, and we definitely should have. And we did not include like Richie or David. And we, if David had been involved in this CBR from day one, it wouldn't have been a problem because David right away would have said, "Oh, I can get that for you," and it wouldn't have been a problem. But yeah, so along with the complexity as these CBR initiatives evolve, so does the type of people involved in it. Yes, right there.
I'm just curious, when it comes to the forecasting process, to what degree are you working with your retailers to, I guess, integrate their data with yours to possibly improve the accuracy?
It depends on the retailer, but most of them, we work very closely if they want us to. Some of the retailers, they don't want, they'll have their forecast and we'll have ours, and they don't want to work with us. We've had retailers, they want us to, they don't want us to give them our forecast. Instead, they want us to give them our data, and then they'll do their own forecast. So it depends on the retailer, but we work with all of the retailers in some level on improving the forecast accuracy because it's win-win in working with the retailers. So we had another question right there, yes.
This is a last question, by the way.
As you investigate business intelligence systems, how to mine your databases, assuming if you're not developing internal programs and you actually go outside and buy something like the shelf and cot system,
Mhm.
are you involving your IS in the evaluation and procurement process to ensure its accuracy and scalability?
Excellent question. I've actually implemented that no one can purchase software, period. You cannot, anyone is free to talk to a software vendor. Anyone on the business side is free to talk to a software vendor as much as you want. But if you're interested in purchasing, you cannot have those discussions without corporate procurement and corporate IT in the same room with you and the vendor. We've had more people buy software, and then the next thing you know, they call up IT and they say, hey, you support this software, and they're going, what, I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything, we don't have people's, no, we can't, you know? But so if you want to buy software, talk to the vendor as much as you want, figure out what you want. If you're serious, before you can take one step forward, corporate procurement, corporate IT has to be involved. And the way we put a stop to it is every contract has to be approved by legal. So our legal, I mean, we can't spend any money without legal getting involved in it. So now, whenever there's a software contract, legal looks for a procurement signature and an IT signature. If those signatures are not on the contract, legal stops it right away. And we've just, 4 or 5 weeks ago, stopped a software purchase that way.